Government troops are giving the Maute ISIS group a last chance to surrender. The military also gives hope to remaining hostages inside the battle zone in Marawi City. Our George Cahiles tells us how troops are reaching out to both civilians and the enemy.
Sir, for info, leaflets ready to capture, over.
Over the remaining positions of the Maute ISIS group, these soldiers dropped these plastic bottles containing leaflets with safety instructions for hostages. Meanwhile, on the ground, troops carry out loudspeaker operations. Soldiers set up a broadcast system near the identified positions of enemies and hostages to guide them on what to do to reach the military.
Ang ating gobyerno ay nagbibigay sa kanila ng huling pagkakataon para kahit papaano ay itama yung mga maling ginawa nila. At ito ay magagawa nila sa pamamagitan ng pagsuko. Iligtas nila ang kanilang sarili, iligtas nila ang kanilang pamilya, lalong-lalo na yung mga anak, yung mga bata na naiwan doon.
As of now, more than 100 civilians are still in the main battle area, 42 hostages and around 60 dependents of Maute fighters. The military says they will do their best to rescue the remaining civilians and encourage some 40 fighters to surrender. There's no deadline given, but the military said it hopes to end the fighting within this month. The latest information is that Maute ISIS group leaders Isnilon Hapilon, Omar Maute, and Malaysian Dr. Mahmoud are still alive and defending their positions.
I cannot talk about the details because it's already a tactical po yun. We have, masabi ko lang, there is a positive result. Yung ginawa namin na pag-airdrop ng battles, there is a significant result of that.
So far, around 1,000 people have died in this war, most of them Maute fighters whose bodies are already in the advanced stage of decomposition. Government troops say if the remaining terrorists will insist on fighting and refuse to surrender, they will confront them head-on.
Mga gusali sa Marawi, nabawi na po ng AFP. Nabawi na ng Armed Forces of the Philippines ang mga gusali na inukupa ng Maute Group. Kung bakit nahirapan ng kasundaluhan na bawiin ang mga matataas na gusali sa Marawi City at kung ilang lugar na lang ang hindi pa nila nababawi sa mga rebelding grupo. Alamin po natin yan sa report ni Asia 48 Sheila Idubas.
Nabawi na ng militar ang 8 matataas na gusali sa Marawi City na inukupa ng mga miyembro ng Maute Group. Batay sa pagtaya ng militar, malapit nang matapos ang gera sa lungsod. Ayon kay Colonel Edgar Arevalo, AFP Public Affairs Chief, maaari na nilang sabihin na nasa final stage na ang operasyon sa Marawi matapos makuha ang kontrol sa 8 gusali na ginawang kuta ng Maute. Isa sa 8 building ay ginamit ng Maute na imbak ng armas at pwesto ng snipers at machine guns. Samantala, 4 pang barangay ang nananatiling hawak ng Maute Group at itinuturing na problematic areas ng militar. Sa press briefing, sinabi ni AFP spokesman Restituto Padilla, sa 76 na barangay sa Marawi City, 4 pa rin ang problematic areas dahil kontrolado pa rin ito ng teroristang grupo.
We are now seeking to continue to clear Marawi in urban terrain operations that are being conducted, and this is where the problem lies. The military activities that are conducted in open terrains like jungles are a different story when it is compared to urban terrain. In an urban terrain where civilians are still currently trapped and may possibly be used as human shields or may be hit by crossfire, troops have to be very careful. Our rules of engagement are very different in urban terrain. We have to be very careful, we have to be very judicious, we have to be very deliberate so as to avoid hitting innocent lives. And this is where the slow process of liberating Marawi is currently happening. Of the 96 barangays of Marawi, 4 remain to be problematic areas where forces of the Maute ISIS-inspired or Daesh-inspired group still remains.
Nagsimula ang gera sa Marawi noong May 23 at nagresulta sa pagkamatay ng 206 na miyembro ng Maute, 58 sundalo at pulis at 26 na sibilyan.
You're in the newsroom on CNN Philippines. Tonight, President Duterte lashes out at the European Union and tells its officials to leave the country, but his spokesman is quick to clarify. The National Police is shifting its focus a day after President Duterte orders PDEA to lead the drug war. And the country's top fashion personalities gather for breast cancer awareness. Good evening, I'm Mitzi Borromeo. We begin with strong words from President Rodrigo Duterte against the European Union. He's asking EU representatives in the country to leave within 24 hours for allegedly criticizing the war on drugs. Our senior correspondent Ina Andolong has more.
My God, do it, stupid. Do it now.
That's the president addressing what he says is the threat of the European Union to have the Philippines excluded from the United Nations because of the killings in his drug war. But the EU has not issued such a statement. The president clearly furious, even cursed in Spanish.
Hindi man ako Espanyol, mindada. Paano sabihin sa Espanyol? EU di go and
It's unclear what the president was referring to, who may have mixed up the groups critical of his war on drugs. It could have been the Human Rights Watch that warned the Philippines risks losing its membership in the UN Human Rights Council if the killings continue. He may have also been referring to a small delegation from Europe, which recently visited the Philippines and called for an end to the killings. The group, which calls itself the Progressive Alliance and Party of European Socialists, which does not represent the EU as an organization, also warned that the Philippines may lose its GSP Plus status with the EU if these killings continue. The GSP Plus status allows the entry of various Philippine products to Europe tax-free. Still addressing himself to the EU, he says the Philippines can survive without it. He says the Philippines can trade with China and its ASEAN neighbors.
the ambassadors of those countries listening now. Tell me, because we can have the diplomatic channel cut tomorrow. You leave my country in 24 hours. All of you. You must have taken the Filipino for granted. Saying that we could be excluded. Is it your decision?
The president often gets irked when he feels other nations are moralizing or telling him what to do. He says he will not allow any country to dictate on the Philippines, and he intends to emphasize this when he speaks at the ASEAN summit to be held in Manila this November. Ina Andolong, CNN Philippines.
Presidential spokesman Ernesto Abella immediately clarifies the president's words. In a statement, he says, and we quote, "The president's expression of outrage is in reaction to statements by a 7-member delegation of the international delegates of the Progressive Alliance, which has falsely portrayed itself as an EU mission." Abella adds, the group's statements demean the country's sovereignty. He says the president's call for EU ambassadors to leave the country in 24 hours must be taken in this light. The country's special envoy to the European Union also clears the air. I earlier talked to former Senator Ed Angara, and he said the so-called 7-member group does not speak for the EU. Angara adds that, in fact, the EU wants to continue engaging the Philippines.
We just came back from Brussels with Secretary Ramon Lopez, and the reception and the discussions were so cordial, pleasant, and instead of moralizing and lecturing us, no, they were even helpful and asking us in what way they can help solve our drug menace, our terrorism issue in Marawi, etc. So they want to continue engaging the Philippines.
The European Union delegation in the country is also reacting to the president's statements. The EU says the visit of the delegation of the international delegates of the Progressive Alliance to the country was not a European Union mission, as reported by some media outlets. The EU is also denying it took part in organizing or planning that visit. It adds the statements of the group do not represent the position of the European Union. The House of Representatives will begin preparing for the trial at the Senate, which will sit as an impeachment court. This after lawmakers impeached COMELEC Chairman Andy Bautista. House Justice Committee Chairman Ray Umali says they will meet next week to craft the articles of impeachment that will be sent to the Senate.
We may have to subpoena some people or some documents so that we will have them ready before we start with the impeachment trial in Senate.
Kabayan Party List Representative Harry Roque submitted the draft articles of impeachment to the Justice Committee after the House impeached Bautista Wednesday night. It states the House finds Bautista guilty of graft and corruption, betrayal of public trust, and culpable violation of the Constitution.
Siya na nga umamin, tumanggap ako ng referral fees kasi wala lamang kaso sa opisina ko ang Smartmatic. It's an issue of law.
He was impeached, but Andy Bautista sees no rush to advance his resignation. It will still take effect by the end of the year. Our AC Nichols has the story.
Elections Chief Andres Bautista is not going to resign earlier than planned, if only to avoid an impeachment trial. He told Malacanang he will step down by the end of the year, and this will not change unless the president says otherwise.
Kasi sa aking palagay, hindi paggalang yun sa ating Pangulo. Alam mo, dapat bigyan natin ng panahon ng Pangulo na sumagot. Kung sa kanyang pasya ay dapat na akong palitan bukas, okay lang sa akin.
Bautista said he discussed his resignation with Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea before he submitted a letter to Malacanang. And they agreed it will take effect on December 31st to give the president lead time to appoint his replacement.
Bautista also informed Medialdea about commitments he had made, in particular a United Nations-funded conference among Asian countries in Cebu in December. The Philippines is hosting the event, and Bautista is involved in the planning.
Bautista announced his plan to resign on Wednesday, the same day Malacanang received his letter. Hours after this announcement, the House of Representatives impeached Bautista as it rejected the Justice Committee's recommendation that dismissed the complaint. Bautista says this was a surprise to him, but he is ready to face all allegations.
Nirespeto natin ang opinyon ng bawat miyembro ng Kamara, kung kaya't, tingnan natin, paghandaan natin, no, kung ano man yung articles of impeachment na siyang gagawin nila.
Malacanang, meantime, says it is looking forward to a smooth transition after Bautista's replacement is named.
Congress shall decide on what to do, with this impeachment in view of his resignation. We acknowledge the services of the chairman, and after his successor is named, we look forward to a smooth transition and preparations for barangay and SK elections next year, and midterm polls and possible BBL and charter change plebiscites.